Hi, everyone. I'm Bernadette Bulacan, Chief Evangelist at Icertis, and welcome to the Fast Tract, where CLM experts provide insights so that you can quickly and confidently embrace AI-enabled contracting. So excited to have Alistair Maiden with me. I have to admit, I've been reading a few things that you've been writing and posting, and one of the things I'm most fascinated about is not necessarily about technology, or maybe you'll correct me about this. It is about human-centered contracting. And so I know it's a little odd to start off a conversation about digitization and digital transformation with human-centered contracting, but I'd love to. So can you tell me a little bit about your fascination with this topic and why it's important when we're having conversations about digitization?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I think, look, I think the start point, and it was certainly the start point for me. So I always like to characterize myself as a positively disruptive person. So I think sometimes some people think I'm negatively disruptive, including my wife, unfortunately, but and certainly my kids. But what I mean by that is I'm quite intolerant of things that don't work properly. And I'm actually particularly sensitive about the human side of that, so how dispiriting it can be to be a participant or a recipient or a customer of a dysfunctional process. And I started to think about this in terms of enterprise contracting. Had some great conversations with my friends Tim and Sally, who run WCC, or I should say Professor Tim rather. And we were, discussing how dispiriting it is to be part of I guess, an analog dysfunctional contract process in a large enterprise. Either you're a customer of the contracting process, so you're a salesperson or maybe a procurement buyer. You've done a great deal. Maybe you don't contract very often, so you might do maximum 3 or 4 deals a year. I guess the start point is, how do I initiate this contracting process? There's often no clear answer. Then when you get to it, you're confounded usually by, long, horrible templates, this crazy long redlining, particularly in the US, redlining negotiation process, which is really illogical when you think about it. And the language and the syntax is really confusing. And like I was a lawyer for I think 15 years, and I sometimes struggle to read contract. And I was a contracts lawyer as well. I'm sometimes like, I don't understand what this means. And so, and then after you've gone through all this pain, then you need to get the contract approved. And when you look at the numbers, and you'll be familiar with this, a remarkable number of contracts actually get canned at the approval stage. They don't go beyond that. When I was in practice, we always used to say the sword of Damocles hangs over every contract because it could get killed. And then, even when the contract's finalized and signed, it's often not live, so you can't actually use it in a meaning. You can't. It's very difficult to derive intelligence from the contract to manage the contract. And so I think people become very dispirited about it. And then if you're actually a participant in that process, so you're a lawyer or a contract manager, or even possibly, you're running a dysfunctional CLM. I mean, it's an awful place to be, to have unhappy customers all the time. And yet, and this is the really important point, how often do you see that human factor in a business case for contracting for CLM? It's just no one ever talks about it. And so I guess my mission for 24 and beyond is to say, let's, if we're seeking adoption, if we want to truly digitize our process, if we want to, I guess from an Icertis perspective, if you want your systems to be sticky and your customers to be happy, and we need to make the process and the systems as easy to use as an iPhone. It needs to be intuitive, simple, recipients should be surprised and delighted, not dispirited and horrified in some cases.
So I know you and I have, the last time we engaged each other and recorded something, we were talking about the golden age of CLM. And now here we are embarking on what might be the golden age of AI and generative AI. Any thoughts? I mean, as we've just talked about human-centered contracting, any thoughts about that intersection with human-centered contracting, CLM technology, and now the myriad of AI tools and generative AI tools that are available to contract professionals?
Yeah, well, you just reminded me actually of what we talked about last time. And I have to say, going back, see, when we last spoke, I think it's fair to say that CLM was not that widely adopted, and now is. So we were right, which is great. So hopefully we'll be right about. Look, I think when you imagine, when you think about the power of AI, and in my organization, we're doing a lot of really fascinating experiments with our own installations of the various AI products out there and testing out its capability to do various things. And these range from making that user experience really easy, enhancing the drafting process, taking the friction out of the redlining process, being able to feed in data sources to help guide a user through the process and negotiate a better process, being able to access that contract database and interact with it to derive true contract intelligence, which I think is where the real return on investment. All of those things are fascinating. And if I take your product, I mean, it has evolved enormously, even in the space of a year. It's like completely different. And the capability is hugely exciting. And it's almost like, I feel like at the moment, like I'm a child with a full cookie jar and I don't know where to get started.
Yeah.
It's going to be great.
Well, Alistair, one of the best things about being partners is that we are global partners. I mean, in India, in Europe, now in the United States. And that also allows us to intersect at a bevy of events, whether it's World CC, the Corporate Legal Operations Consortium, CLOC. I know that many of those events and summits are just around the corner. Any big themes that you're looking to explore there? Any learnings that you're seeking while you're in those communities and orbits?
I'm kind of laughing actually, because I was thinking in my preparedness for clock, probably the key thing for me due to the time difference is to try to avoid falling asleep during the afternoon sessions. That's the problematic thing. But I think what interests me is people that have actually done stuff with AI. So I get the theoretical stuff. It's quite interesting. I could probably talk about that all day. But I'm really fascinated to look at people, maybe it's some of your customers who've used the capability to really enhance their process. I'm really excited about that.
I'm in a similar boat. One, I find that the conversations that we have in hallways and up in elevators, people are dispersing, are some of the best conversations, because it's a little less structured than what we see in the sessions and a lot more honest. I think exactly last year was about theory, and it was May, it was less than a year old. And I think people were just handling definitions and learning early days. So like you, I'm really excited to see now that we're well into a year in what that evolution looks like.
Yeah.
And I think people will be able to share really great techniques to be ready, not just for CLM, which is the conversation we were probably having 5 years ago. What makes you ready for CLM? But what do you need to be ready from a people perspective, a security perspective, and a workflow perspective to be ready for this new trajectory? And I'm really excited to have those conversations.
And I guess as you were talking, I was just thinking about something which clock is kind of the stage for, but you kind of like we're all kind of a bit geeky in this industry, and it is a niche, but indulge us for a moment. What I think clock is quite a good stage for the kind of superstars of the profession, isn't it? It gives them a stage, it literally gives them a stage to get on stage. And one of the things I'm quite interested about is, maybe 5 years ago, you kind of saw the emergence of the CLM superstars, and then it became very legal ops focused, and we know who those guys are. But I do think there's going to be, I'm really interested to see who the AI leaders are going to be. I feel like at the moment, like everyone's talking about it, but there's no voice, and that's really interesting for me. I think that's going to be. I'm fascinated. I'm just going to try and talk to as many people as possible. I think.
All right. Well, I think that's a good objective as we head into that season. Let's identify all of the AI superstars. Let's learn from them, and maybe we'll get back onto camera and share what we've learned in all of those conversations.
Awesome.
Thanks, Alistair. Thanks for joining me.
Pleasure. Thank you.